Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after what I honestly do believe was the least compelling game of this 2024-25 Winnipeg Jets season. Never have I been so afraid that that soft, calming music that all of a sudden they changed up and now leads into our show would put those folks waiting in the chat room to sleep. We do though appreciate that it's 12:15. We're getting rolling here, and we got people taking part. That means a lot to us. Welcome everybody. Great to have you along. This is also one of these times too that this is one of the games I think like the Sucky Boo Boos of the world are gonna have a real hard time with. And it's funny because where they get outed is they get outed in the prizes, right? They get outed in the lamplighter. They get outed in the $50 gift certificate, because if you're not going to listen to see if you won the prize, then you missed the prize. So we'll see if the two winners from last show are going to be able to claim them in this situation. Anyways, so often this is live, right? Like we just get on and we start talking. And what you kind of learn to do when you're doing live podcasts like Ken and I are doing here is you just kind of trust your gut, right? And you just kind of go with it and whatever is coming out of your mouth. Like I honestly, as this show is counting down, I don't have anything planned on what I'm going to say. It counts down, we pop up, and then you just start talking. Whatever comes out, comes out. I mean, you have an idea as the game's going on of what you think that happened in the game and this and that, but you just get rolling like I'm rolling right now. And that's what happens. And sometimes, the stuff that pops out, you wish you could take it back, right? Like that off color joke that Renny told in the last show. I wish I could take that one back. I wish I never would have said that joke, not because it was really that off color, just it didn't land. And Renny's got a reputation to uphold. He's a funny guy. I mean, he's got the bangers, and that was not a banger. It was one of my worst humorous moments of my life. I want that one back, but it's funny because there's a lot of times too that you're kind of like dangling on the precipice of should I say this or should I say that, and sometimes you don't. At last show, there was something about that game against Seattle that I wanted to bring up, and then I didn't because the sample size is too small. And if the Winnipeg Jets would have gone out and pumped Vancouver in this game, it would have looked ridiculous for me to say. And I'm not worried about looking ridiculous, clearly, by some of my takes that you've seen from me over the years here. But what I was thinking was backtrack, not last game, but all the way back to the game before that against the Dallas Stars. And one of the things that I really liked about how the Winnipeg Jets handled it, one of the things I think is different about how the Winnipeg Jets handled that game, is I think they've allowed themselves to feel that that was a big game. I know Kyle Connor said afterwards, it's just kind of another game. Talking to the other players, I didn't get that sense. Seeing how they prepared for that game, feeling, the conversations and the tone in the dressing room that morning, I feel like the Winnipeg Jets were like, okay, this is a big game. This matters. We win this game, we basically lock up first in the West. That's going to be important. And I think they went out and got it. And I think Jets teams of the past did not face that. I think the Jets teams of the past tried to treat every game like it was just another game. And what they did was they hid from the bigness, the significance of the moment. And what that's meant to the Jets over the years is that when they get in those games where you cannot hide from the bigness, from the significance of the moment, they got crushed underneath that weight. And so I thought that game that they played against Dallas, that game that they played earlier in the season against the Florida Panthers, where they bounced back against them, I thought that those games are, signs that we're going to see something different from the Winnipeg Jets so far going into the playoffs. Now, it's a way of me getting to the idea that sometimes when you get high, there's going to be a low and there's going to be a drop off after that. And one thing we've talked about on this show over and over again is how good the Winnipeg Jets have been at avoiding that this year. They've just really been able to go out and replicate their game and replicate their effort and do the right things and have the details and all those kind of things game after game after game. I was going to say after last show, I wondered if what we saw against Seattle in the first period and a little bit of the second period before they finally got going, I was wondering if what we were going to see was a little bit of a hangover from the mental celebration of just how happy the Jets must have been with themselves by how they responded in that game against the Dallas Stars and giving the Dallas Stars a beating in that game. And I would suggest that what we saw last game was the Jets coming out and not having everything, having a little bit of that hangover, but having the muscle memory to stick with that game, get through it, get back into that game and win that game. And then tonight, there was just, it wasn't there. The details were not there. The effort was not there. That was the Winnipeg Jets roster out on the ice. That was not the Winnipeg Jets as we know them. The style of play for them, their identity, their very identity was nowhere near on display. The urgency that they attack with, the feeling that, you know, they're trying to trap the puck in the opposition zone like there's no tomorrow. Like keeping that puck in the zone is the most important possible thing that could happen on the ice. I didn't see any of that tonight. Clearly, their head coach tried to mix things up to try and find that spark. That spark was not there to be had. I'll give credit to the Vancouver Canucks. Since we've seen this team in Winnipeg after losing JT Miller, I like their effort a lot more in that game. Usually I'm the guy who's not excusing, you know, like the people who love to say, oh, well, the Jets were off tonight and that's the only reason they lost. To me, clearly, the Winnipeg Jets were absent from this game. And I'm going to be honest, I don't have that big of a problem with it. Unless you are the most important thing for you as a Winnipeg Jets hockey fan is for the Winnipeg Jets to win the President's Trophy. If that's the most important thing for you, well, then you should be really upset with what happened on this night here tonight. To me, it's borderline meaningless winning the President's Trophy. I think this is the first time we really on display saw the Winnipeg Jets be entirely human. It makes sense that after you basically gather all your energy and go to war against the Dallas Stars, and then you get on the other side of that you sag a little bit. And the fact of the matter, in my opinion, is the Winnipeg Jets have lots of runway to sag. And I don't necessarily think that this team needs to be pedal to the metal for the last now 13 games of the season in order to be prepared for the postseason. I think it's quite the opposite. I think it's okay. Hey, if you're going to go for a lull, if you're going to gather your energy, if you're not going to have your best, get into it right now. Allow yourself to feel that. Allow yourself to don't stray too far from your game. But I really have no problem with the Winnipeg Jets on a night like tonight not having their game, not having their identity, not playing anywhere near close to their effort level. I don't think it puts them in a bad spot if they're playing the Vancouver Canucks in the first round. I don't think this gathers any steam for the Vancouver Canucks against the Winnipeg Jets. This is truly a night where the Jets didn't have it, and I do think what we're seeing is a little bit of a post-Dallas Stars, in kind of the mindset of it clinching the Western Conference hangover after this here. I don't have the biggest problem with it, but maybe Ken does, maybe you do. And if you do, fair enough. Let's get to Ken to see if he agrees on this topic. Time for the man with the best music in the business, folks. Here comes Ken. Ken, I was on Fan 590 earlier on today. I actually had a conversation that Winnipeg Jets fans, I am assuming, will be very mad at me for. I'm not even going to say what it was for. What I will say is they went out of the way to compliment the hat that I was wearing here. I'll say this, the hat game, I don't think it gets any stronger than what I've got going on here, but the hat game doesn't come anywhere close to touching the suit game, which both of us are falling off on. So listen, I've peaked out when it comes to the hat thing, but we're definitely not peaking out when it comes to the suits. But I know a place you can go if you want to peak out when it comes to the suit game. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corridon Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will take you to the top of the mountain, folks, to the very peak of looking good. This is where you go to do this in Winnipeg. Ken, what's your takeaway from this game here tonight?
Yeah, sleepy effort, especially when it comes to the defensive details and defensive zone coverage, puck management, clock management, situational awareness, whichever point you want to emphasize. First, all of those were, found in many different places in this one. There was plenty of offensive awareness, not a lot of finish. Open net for Kyle Connor in the first period, 3/4 of the net open. He kind of shot it cross body. Maybe the puck rolled a little bit, but that was kind of an uncharacteristic miss. Gabe Vilardi going through a bit of a rough patch when it comes to offense. I think that's 1 in 12 games now for him. A couple pucks just jumped over his stick. He was there. Somebody kind of leaned on him earlier in the year. Those are, they're playing the Macarena, right? I mean, the puck is around his stick. It's in the back of the net. Nino Niederreiter, 14 games now without a goal, 1 assist in that time. Mason Appleton, I think that's 1 assist in 11 games for him. So, the third line has not been going, and Scott Arniel did something about it, breaking up the third line, bumping up Brandon Tanev and Alex Iafallo. Obviously, they got a reward with a goal, and right away too. I don't want to spend too much time at the buffet because there wasn't a lot to chew on today, but we're going straight to the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. Scott Arniel gave the Pristine Roofing wake-up call to Mason Appleton and Nino Niederreiter, and quite frankly, I like the physical nature that I saw from Niederreiter after he was put down on the fourth line. What I didn't like is that this is another game, Sean, where Nino, he had the puck around the net in the first period, but this is another game where Niederreiter has, limited impact on the offensive side of the game. He had 0 shots on goal, 0 shot attempts. He did have 2 hits after the demotion, but Nino Niederreiter's too important for the Jets to go 14 without a goal, and especially in a game like this, he needed to get going offensively. Again, I'm not pointing the finger at Nino Niederreiter, but this is a guy who is a 7-time 20-goal scorer, I believe, by my calculations. He's been stuck on 14 for a long time, and the Jets need him going, because when he is going and when Mason Appleton is forechecking ferociously, that line is one of the best third lines in hockey right now. They're not one of the best third lines in hockey. They don't have to produce offense, but they have not been playing at the level they need to, Sean. And when you're about to go up against Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, those guys combined are getting the Pristine Roofing wake-up call from me.
Well, you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call, even at this time of night at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. You'll be glad you did. I personally think the Pristine Roofing wake-up call for the Jets will come in the Edmonton Oilers. I think that there's going to be a bounce back you're going to see here right away. I think that this is almost like kind of like a sandwich hangover. You know what I mean? Like you start off with the Dallas Stars, you start eyeing up that, I think there's these are measuring stick games, right? Like the Winnipeg Jets could very well run into the Edmonton Oilers in the third round of the playoffs. And they know that, playing Dallas the way they did it, they put themselves in a position where they don't have to deal with the Dallas Stars or the Colorado Avalanche until the second round of the playoffs. And I mean, maybe it says something that if I'm right about this, and if they come out and, hey, let's wait for it, I think it's going to happen. Maybe I'll need the Pristine Roofing wake-up call after this one. But I think the Jets will come out and you'll see the Winnipeg Jets in all their glory against the Edmonton Oilers. If that's the case, then it's a good good indication that I'm right, that the Winnipeg Jets raised their game against the Edmonton Oilers and raised their game against the Dallas Stars. It may say a little something that they did not raise their game against the Vancouver Canucks, a team they could very, very possibly play in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But I don't know. I think they'll be back and in full force and back to what they're doing in the next game. But in the meantime, we have to talk about what we saw in front of us here tonight. You're talking about Scott Arniel, and I'm going to kind of start backwards in this game. You're talking about what Scott Arniel did to kind of try and get his team going. And I know someone was talking I think it was GIF guy, who was saying, maybe he needs to read them the riot act like he did against Utah that one time there to kind of get them sparked up and going again. But I don't know. I'll say this. What I did like, Ken, is that he pulled the goalie. And remember, I can't even remember the specifics of the situation, but we talked about this. And
we disagreed on this one.
There was one, like, you disagree on it tonight as well?
I don't love it. I mean, I'm okay with it. I think it's showing that you're trying to do it for a chance that you need it. But in this case, I would just say that down by 3, it was going to take a miracle. And hey, I get it. Belief is an important thing. Anyway, I remember it was one time last year. It was just coming out of the streak, right? The 3 or less, and wasn't it at that point? Wasn't it the
we had a conversation about this.
It was last year. Yeah.
Yes, that's what it was. Yes, and I had said you got to do what's the right thing to do in the moment. And so I know there's going to be people out there, the award hawkers, the people out there who are thinking, well, you've got the Jennings on the line here, and you've got to build up in the Jennings. Why are you going to give an opportunity for teams to score more goals against you and get rid of that edge against the Jennings? If I'm Scott Arniel and I'm a player and I'm looking at my coach, I don't want my coaching to win some award that in the end, who's going to go back and be like, ladies and gentlemen, the 2025 Jennings winning, Winnipeg Jets. I don't think
Agreed.
that anyone is going to think like that. Ken, I don't even think he did it to try and get back in and win this game. I think it was a message to his players that he was like, well, you know what? You may have given up on this game, but I haven't.
Yeah, love it.
Notice, Ken, who he put out on the ice at that time were the players that were actually going in that game. Like Brandon Tanev was going 100 miles a minute in that game. A lot of the Winnipeg Jets players did not show up for this game. He was not one of those. He was going. Alex Iafallo, I thought, was going, moving Lowry with those guys.
Yep.
I thought was a reward for them, and also a message, like you were saying, to Nino Niederreiter and Mason Appleton, that like, hey, you know what? Maybe you guys are getting a little too comfortable with it. Maybe you think that Kenny and Rennie's, or more so Rennie's, word carries a lot of weight in this market. You guys are never going to get knocked off this third line because Renny says so. But in this situation here, I love the idea that he took and put Lowry, who was going and pushing in that game, and took him off that line and said, you know what? Maybe this is the third line. Maybe this is the third line right now. Maybe Alex Iafallo and Brandon Tanev are the third line and a better fit to give us the energy that you guys usually provide. And I think I love the idea that he put those players out there, because what it said to me was, he, as a coach, said, I'm not giving up on this game. I'm going to put out the guys on the ice right now who I believe didn't give up on this game. And that's the right thing to do in this moment. Whether or not we walk away from this game with any more points, whether they score 1, 2, 3 empty net goals, whether we lose by 4 goals, 5 goals, 6 goals, what matters here right now is that you see that, yeah, you may have taken the night off. I didn't. And the guys who didn't take the night off are going to get the playing time down the stretch here from me.
Yeah, right on. And I think that probably applies to the decision after 2 periods. And again, we know that Connor Hellebuyck hates getting pulled. Quite frankly, I was curious if the Jets were going to consider, and again, not because of performance, though I didn't like the 4th goal. It was a little nonchalant for me. Besser beating him to the cover up there, Sean. But outside of that, they're mostly backdoor taps and one-timers. So I know a lot of people are saying, oh, Hellebuyck this, Hellebuyck that. I mean, let's get real here. Guys had a sub 2 goals against average for a good chunk of the last month here. You're allowed an off night, and I wouldn't even call it an off night in terms of goals that beat him. But like I said, didn't like the fourth one by Besser, the second one, him beating him to the cover up. But I was honestly curious, Sean, if the Jets, and again, not because of performance, but because Hellebuck had to come in on Sunday for the 10 minutes when Eric Comrie was in concussion spotter protocol, I wondered if they would consider giving Hellebuck the third period off for him to have a mental reset for Thursday's game against the Oilers. But this is another example, Sean, that again, no offense to Eric Comrie, but if you pull your starting goaltender after 2 down by 3 when you're going on a power play to start the third, it does sort of give your players the indication that you're, yes, I get it. You're probably changing goalies to try to get a spark, but you're kind of also, punting on the game in some ways. So I'm glad that Scott O'Neill didn't do that and, left him out there. And, Connor Hellebuck took care of his part of the bargain in that point also. But I was curious. Were you curious at all if he might go to Comrie in the third just because he didn't get the full night off on Sunday in Seattle?
Never curious.
No?
Never,
Okay.
because that is one way that I actually think, and I don't necessarily think that it's healthy. Just like last year in the playoffs, when there was kind of this storyline that, well, Connor Hellebuck couldn't have done anything. It was the team that failed around him. I hated that storyline. I hate that kind of talk. You're either a team or you're not. And I would say one of the areas that the coaches over the last number of years have called, have coached this team, and usually they coach it exactly how they're supposed to. I think that was my example tonight. Him pulling the goaltender, I thought, is exactly what a coach should be doing. I don't think they conduct their business with Connor Hellebuck like goalies typically would with their goaltenders on almost any other team. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you that that's because Connor Hellebuck is not your typical goaltender. And that's the argument, right? The argument there is that Connor Hellebuck is special and should be treated different. I don't think that. And I honestly don't think it has served the Jets well in the past not to do that. So I'm not surprised, because I know that the Winnipeg Jets don't pull Connor Hellebuck because he doesn't want to be pulled, or they're maybe afraid that they're going to embarrass him or whatever it is. But the Winnipeg Jets rarely ever pull Connor Hellebuck in a situation where a lot of other goalies. See, I don't agree with you on that idea, Ken. Like, I don't think it's punting on the game to put your backup goaltender in. I think putting your backup goaltender in is exactly what we talked about in putting out Lowry and Tanev and Iafallo, in that you're like, you know what? I'm going to give someone else who is not the typical person an opportunity to make something happen in this game. And to your point, the fourth goal by Connor Hellebuck was far too casual. I thought he was casual tonight.
Agreed.
He definitely did not get the Sean Reynolds stat win on this night. This was an off night by Connor Hellebuck, and it was not just an off night and bounces didn't go their way. His compete wasn't there. He still made some great saves, right? He still did some really great things, but I mean, that was far too casual, that fourth goal. Eric Comrie, I think, has earned the opportunity to step into a game like that and try and put his stamp on that game, and maybe, just maybe, he carries them until they wake up. You're not going to find that out, though, against the Winnipeg Jets, because I'm telling you this, it was this way with Paul Maurice, it's been that way with Rick Bowness, and it is that way with Scott Arniel. They don't pull that guy because they give him they treat Connor Hellebuck different than they would other goaltenders, and I personally don't think it is something that's paid off for the Winnipeg Jets. It's the reverse payoff, Ken. I think it would have paid off if you would have put Eric Comrie into that game tonight, and that's triggered it right there. That's all I needed to do that. The reverse payoff, it would have paid off, I'm saying, if Eric Comrie would have gone into that game. And if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online.
Sorry, quickly, Wild Bill, we're happy that you're here. You got to tone it down a little bit. This is a warning for you.
Oh boy, the verbal warning.
I don't
Okay,
want to
here
put you in
it
a
is.
timeout, but let's clean it up a little bit. I mean, you can again, don't be making assertions about players and whatever else. Come on, this is a safe space. Let's be smarter about it here.
There we go. Ken's handling it. Sometimes you get put in a timeout, you just never get out.
That's
And
right.
that's just
We don't want
you
that
don't
for
want
you, Wild Bill. We don't want
we don't want that for you, Wild Bill. We want you here challenging us and taking the pot shots and doing all those kind of things that make it a
but
fun
let's clean
show.
it up a little bit.
Here,
You know what you did.
yeah. I like that. You know what you did. This is I was talking about the
Soon you're
guy.
going to see the Rick bonus with the arms over. I'm disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed in you.
It's the fatherly love. I'm not mad. I just, I'm disappointed. That was the worst thing
You got to
going.
be better.
What was hilarious? When I was growing up, my dad would give me the old "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed." Like there was nothing worse than your dad being like disappointed in you. And you know what I thought was hilarious is like I was like 9 or something like that when I kind of realized he's kind of brandishing that like a weapon on me, right? Like he'll come out, he'll be like, "Oh boy, wow, you really let me down there, son." And you'd be like wrecked. And so then you'd go out and do all, and I kind of,
Uh,
you know what finally got me to understand, Ken, that it was a tool that was being used against me. My dad grew up in Dryden, Manitoba, or excuse me, Dryden, Ontario. His dad worked in the mill out there, and we'd go out in the summers in Dryden and we'd go visit Grandma Rose, my dad's mom. And Grandma Rose would pull the same thing on my dad. And the look on his face when she would give him the old, you only visit every once in a while, and blah, blah, and gave him the old, "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed." And the way that I saw my dad, the ultimate, the alpha male, the way that he crumbled and the shoulders sunk in and he couldn't maintain eye contact and all those things. And I was like, wait a minute, all parents do these to their kids. It's not just me. I'm just not. It's here. I thought I was just this kid going through life, letting his dad down, and everyone's kids were, taking care of their parents, and they all knew it. So it was like that was a fun moment. Who didn't let us down here tonight is Patrick Guazad, or I had this at one time. Guazad. He says 27 and 91. We're going to. This is going to launch us into the next thing because he absolutely nails this. This is a smoking hot take and worthy of our Flame and Comfort award on this day, because those two players, we got to talk about them. We'll talk about them right after this, Ken, but for sure, Patrick Guazad, that's your KNR hot take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort is soon moving. You'll find it will be one of the most impressive showrooms you will see in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. Visit Flame and Comfort. They'll take care of it for you. And don't take that down just yet, Ken. I want everyone to soak in the warmth and the heat of this graphic that was put together by Ken's lovely significant other, Stacy. Put this together for us. It looks like $1 million. Thank you so much, Stacy. You know what, Ken? You may be on vacation down there, but Stacy wasn't putting that together. Good on her. I'm going to let you have the floor. 27 and 91. What'd you think of them today?
Yeah, for those listening and not watching, that's at 318 Logan Avenue. Go see Dwayne and his staff there. Ehlers was tremendous in the game. Outside of one turnover in the D zone where he flipped it over the guy's stick and got caught there. But for the most part, Ehlers was, I would say, probably he was the most dangerous Jets player. He had 4 shots on goal, 8 shot attempts. His goal was, a really smart play, taking the puck from Nemestikov and then a little bit of a stop and go. Had another really nice play where he cut to the middle and rang one off the crossbar when he beat Lankinen. Loved how he got to the hard areas. Cole Perfetti, I really liked his game. No shots on goal, but he had 5 shot attempts. He had a takeaway. He had a block shot. I noticed him again around the puck a lot. Nemestikov, 5 shot attempts, 3 hits. I thought that line was very good. There's no doubt about it. Would be some disappointment that there wasn't more offense to be had, but they were creating, and that's what the Jets were looking for. And I mean, Scott O'Neill said it flat out after the game. He liked the generation from his first 2 lines, but the second third and fourth lines were not going. And that's why they flipped things around and, flipped the centers and promotion for Alex Iafallo and Brandon Tanev. And as you mentioned, Sean, I mean, you noticed Tanev a lot today. And Alex Iafallo's goal is a classic. Get to the net, find a loose puck, chip it over before someone can get to you. But yeah, I mean, I love the way that Perfetti played. I like the way that Ehlers played. And I think you have to include Nemestikov. It wasn't just the two of those guys on the line. I thought that Nemestikov was noticeable in the game as well. And it's important for him. I mean, we talked about it. Sunday's game was just the second multi-point game since February 1st. Now, we understand there was a break involved in between there, but I mean, he also went through an 8-game pointless drought. And Nemestikov, even though he brings lots of other things to the table, he needs to produce in that second line center role for the Jets to be effective. We know that Sean Monahan was a perfect fit for the Jets last year, but the fact that he had no points in that series against Colorado, that was detrimental to the Jets' ability to try to advance. So Nemestikov's going to need to be strong down the stretch and into the playoffs. He's going to need to produce some offense along with being a defensive conscience and being an agitator and spending time around the blue paint. So overall, like I said, I thought that both those guys were very good. Ehlers using his speed very well. I like the confidence that Perfetti's playing with. There were a couple of really smart plays where he's just taking that extra split second to make a secure play. And that's something that, we've always talked about the word processor with Perfetti, the brain. I feel like he's getting his feet moving. He's confident with the puck and he's making a lot of sound, smart decisions. And that's what the Jets need him to do. And this is simple, Sean. When Ehlers is a play driver, the Jets are an incredibly dangerous team. Like, there's no way around this. Like, this is a fact. When Ehlers is driving play, that makes the Jets incredibly dangerous.
So he goes and he scores that goal. It's a very Nick Ehlers goal. You make a mistake, you go in the wrong direction. He creates separation with that speed. He's so shifty. And I'll say this: there's very few people, and maybe no one, and I'm including Mark Scheifele, I'm including Kyle Connor on the Jets, that if they get into that slot and it's just them and the goalie, that I think is going to bury the puck behind that goalie, maybe more so than Nick Ehlers. When he creates those opportunities for himself, he's just money. And how many times have we seen him come streaking down that wing and either whip up the slap shot or just get that shot off and blow it right past the goaltender? He's something else when it comes to that. I noticed on social media there was a whole bunch of people right after he scored that goal that were basically saying, God, I'm going to miss you, Nick Ehlers, right? There's a lot of people out there who are thinking that's it, that Nick Ehlers is gone after this. One of the things that I would say, our friend Luke Fox at Sportsnet had put together his list of what he believes are the top, most coveted free agents going into the offseason. Mitch Marner, number one on that list. And then second on that list is Nick Ehlers. In a year where the salary cap has gone up as high as it has gone up, the timing of this is perfect for Nick Ehlers, because all of a sudden a whole bunch of teams have a bunch of space. And if they want to make a move, that like the competition is never going to have been higher. The amount of money that teams have to throw around has never going to have been higher. Like, this is the perfect time for Nick Ehlers to go and test free agency. Doesn't mean that he couldn't just stay and take a deal with Winnipeg, based on what he thinks he's going to see out there. But the one thing that you get with Nick Ehlers, and how many times have we seen this with the Winnipeg Jets? When the Jets as a team aren't going, Nick Ehlers can kind of, and I don't want to say single-handedly because you nailed it, Ken. Nemestikov was great in this game, and Cole Perfetti, this is just another example of him showing it. Like, now Cole has gone from, just being the guy who showed up when it's a cakewalk, right, to being the guy who's showing up in hard games, to being the guy who shows up in hard games consistently, and now going that extra step and being that guy that shows up when the rest of the team doesn't show up, right? Like, he's now starting to be your guy. Like, that's a culture carrier right there. That's a driver. Yeah. Like Paul Maurice used to talk about drivers. When you're the guy who's going when Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor and those guys don't have it, and the effort is maybe not where it should be with your other culture carriers like Mason Appleton and Nino Niederreiter for part of that game. When you've got a young player who's just coming into his own, who's kind of leading the way, good for him. Great job for him. But just to rewind back to Nick Ehlers is the kind of guy who can go out and single-handedly win games for the Jets. And I thought they were heading towards that direction, that Nick Ehlers was just going to go out and be the difference maker and will the Jets to win this game. It wasn't meant to be because the Jets couldn't keep the puck out of their own net on this night. But that's what a team out there, I think, is looking and seeing when they see Nick Ehlers. He's this guy that you add in who's this kind of like, at times, a trump card, right? Like, he may not be your king, he may not be your jack or any of those things, but he's the ace up your sleeve every once in a while because he's just can make something happen out of nowhere. Does he do it as consistently as a guy like Kyle Connor? Nowhere near as consistently, but there's an argument to be made. He's never been given the opportunity to play with high level enough players to be that guy to do it consistently. But even without playing with those players, he still, I maintain, is a guy who has that wild card ability about him that he can go out and steal games for you. That's what I took away from this one on this night. Again, is we've seen it before. We'll see it again. But if I'm another team's general manager out there and I'm looking and I'm seeing Nick Ehlers, I'm being like, boy, oh boy, if we've already got a really good team, adding that guy is just that guy who goes out and maybe we get 6, maybe we get 8, maybe we get 12 points by the end of the year because he goes and does some of the amazing things that he does in overtime. He does some of the things like he did here tonight. That speed kills, and maybe if you can find a way to unlock him even to a further degree than the Winnipeg Jets have, I think general managers are going to be salivating over.
Well, especially if you're a team that has room, right? I mean, again, lots of things can happen, and the playoffs can determine some other things. And Nikolai Ehlers has enjoyed his 10 years here, so we're not saying that he's closed the door on Winnipeg. But what we are saying is that if you're a team, let's just say, for example, Sean, you're a team like the Chicago Blackhawks, and you thought you might be in the bidding for Mikko Rantanen, and he signed an 8-year extension with the Dallas Stars. Would you not be considering playing Nikolai Ehlers beside Connor Bedard for the next 8 years or 7 years as an unrestricted free agent candidate? I mean, of course you would. If you're Mike Grier, you're crushing it in the teardown portion. You found a way to, get the first overall pick with Macklin Celebrini. Do you not think Nikolai Ehlers would be a great fit skating alongside Macklin Celebrini for the next 7 years? Of course you would. If you're Utah Hockey Club, Sean, you've got money to, you've got cap space, you got lots of capital, draft capital. If you're trying to level up in year 2, of course Nikolai Ehlers would make sense for them. And that's just 3 teams off the top of our heads. I mean, there's lots of teams in the East that would find him to be appealing as well. And we'll see how it goes. And quickly, John, I think it was Rayo. Yeah, you're right. It's a whiff by the off-ice officials because Cole Perfetti, when he went to the backhand, clearly had a shot on net. I think it was in the second period, Sean. Really nice hands, cut to the middle, and definitely had a backhand that should have been a shot on goal. Regardless, Ehlers is a guy that is going to generate a lot of interest. And as we're seeing, guys are coming off the board, and that means there will be teams that are going to be offering large sums of money for Nikolai Ehlers to be recruited elsewhere.
Well, if you're talking about teams, I was talking with Eric Engels tonight because the Montreal Canadiens and Ottawa Senators had a banger of a game, and now all of a sudden the Montreal Canadiens
big
back
in the play for Eric Doubly. Big birthday boy.
I did not know it was his birthday. I never even said happy birthday to him. I'll have to make sure I do that. Although it's too late now. It's what, 2:00 in the morning in Montreal.
Don't worry, I got you covered. Don't worry.
Yeah, for both of us. There you go. Oh my goodness, the Johnson.
I know you don't like me to speak for you very often, but I'll take care of you on this one.
When it comes to those kind of things, please feel free. You should do it. You should give me most of the credit. You should say, you know what, Sean told me I should call and say happy birthday. And by the way, he says so as well. He's a little bit busy, but that would be great. Talking about teams, the Montreal Canadiens, you add a guy like Nikolai Ehlers in there, you never mind the Patrick Laine factor. And then, of course, the Carolina Hurricanes, a team that is ever searching for offense. That's something that would be tailor-made for them. And we know that they've been interested in him for years. Why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out before we get going here?
Yeah, right on. If you have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including our podcast.
We're actually moving along pretty fast here, but I want to do just quickly. We don't have to spend too much time on this because you've kind of talked about it. But did you think the line mix-ups worked? Do you think there's messages sent in there that will be received and will pay off down the line? It clearly didn't pay off on the night here in a win or a lot of goals. But did you like where Scott Arniel went with the line mix-ups, and do you think it's going to have an effect?
Yeah, I mean, in the short term, it had an effect because they scored and that line was effective. And as we mentioned, I thought that Niederreiter had a little extra bounce in his step after he got bumped down, had a couple of hits in the game after that. I'm torn on this. I mean, we know the type of success that the Lowry line has had against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl at various times. We also know Chris Knoblauch has the last change on Thursday. We know that the Oilers will be sour. And Sean, this is almost, I shouldn't say it's two different teams because the Jets aren't a different team than they were in game one, even though they have two additions. But I'm 100. I don't know if Scott Arniel will automatically go back to Niederreiter and Appleton, and it's got nothing to do with message sending. It's those guys aren't going right now. So you take one or the other. You think, well, you give them a chance. You put your trust in them for 69 games for the majority of those times, especially when Appleton and Lowry were healthy. What message are you sending by breaking that line up going into a big game against the Edmonton Oilers? So I'm a little bit torn. I think that you could probably go back to the original, and then if those guys aren't going again, then you could make the flip again. But what do you think? Do you think they're sticking with it, or do you think they're going to stick?
No.
They'll just go back to Lowry and Appleton and Niederreiter, right?
Because I like what he did in sending that message. That line, we've talked about it. They've been up, they've been down. Scott Arniel told me himself he's seen flashes of it. He feels like they're building. This is clearly a step back, and I think he's kind of saying, okay, enough. So, like, this was one of those things where that's not just this game, right? He's been trying to figure out where that line is for a long time now, and they just have not locked back into what that third line is and what we know it can be since the Appleton and Lowry injury. So I think this was his time now to kind of say and identify. I don't think he looks at Adam Lowry and thinks Adam Lowry is the problem. I think this was his way of trying to hold two players accountable.
Oh, I didn't think it was Lowry at all. I thought it was the wingers weren't going.
That exactly. And I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm saying that, to me, this is Scott Arniel's way of very publicly saying Adam Lowry is not the problem here. You two guys got to get going. Like, the third line's a problem, and I keep saying, third line, we got to get you going. Third line, we got to get you going. Third line, we got to get you going. Okay, let's take Adam out of the mix here, because Adam's doing what he's supposed to be doing. Now we're talking to you two. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take Adam. I'm going to let him play with those guys over there. And I think we're gonna show you that he's pretty effective with Tanev over there. And Alex Iafallo is always playing the game the right way, and he's got a little bit of an offensive touch to him. And so maybe these guys are going to go out and start playing well together. And let's just say, by the way they're playing here tonight, I think they've earned playing with that guy. Maybe you guys need to get back to playing with Adam Lowry again. I feel like that's the message that was sent. So I think that that's probably going to pay off. What I would have liked to have actually seen, Ken, was, and I know it's tricky to do, and I know that you probably can't do it because Nick Ehlers was playing so well, and nothing wrong with Nemestikov's game, and Cole Perfetti's playing well as well. But I actually would have liked to have seen, what I've been waiting for is, if we're going to spin the prices, the lottery wheels there and have lines end up with different combinations, I really would like to see things kind of moved around and give a boost to a guy like Cole Perfetti, that it's like, yeah, you know what? You've been playing so good. I think I'd like to put you up with Mark Scheifele. You know what we need from you tonight, Kyle? We need you to get Mark Scheifele going. That's how much faith that we have in you. And if you can get him going, maybe you can show me. Now, here's the one thing we know, Ken. Mark Scheifele's made this clear. He's been like this over the years. He was back like this in the Patrick Laine days. Mark Scheifele wants to, the situation with Ehlers has shaken down like this. Mark Scheifele wants to play with Kyle Connor. He's going to play with Kyle Connor. It's kind of like the Hellebuck situation I was telling you about before. It's a different set of rules for these guys. Sometimes that's just the way it goes with star players. But I still like the idea of exposing different players to different guys. Maybe find a way to get Velarde back on a line with Ehlers, because those two click so well together, and see if you can light a little bit of a fire there. It was hard to do, though, because you basically had, like, the part about this that is strange, Morgan Barron's been playing great, right? So Morgan Barron gets taken off a line that was working so that Lowry can go there. He's kind of the sacrificial lamb in this situation. I just don't think that you didn't want to make Vladislav Nemesnikov the sacrificial lamb on this night when he's doing the right things to try and get Mark Scheifele going. But I still feel like, in a way, there's maybe a missed opportunity in there to kind of jumble things and, move that top six around just to kind of see how guys are, and to basically say to Cole, you know what, Cole, you've been great. Here's a treat. You know what I mean? Positive reinforcement kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting concept, and there's still 13 games left to see if that we've often talked about Mark Scheifele and Cole Perfetti maybe clicking at some point together. And as you mentioned, it's not it's not a demotion for Gabe Velarde. It's to put him into a place where he has excelled before. And let's not kid ourselves, Sean. The matchups most nights are easier for the second line than for the first line, right? So that would also be, it's more trying to ease the pressure on Gabe Velarde at a time when things just aren't seeming to be going for him offensively. Like today, I mean, Velarde had 5 shots and 6 shot attempts. I mean, so he was around the puck a lot, around the net a lot. But maybe if you get him out there against the third line and the third D pairing a few times, maybe he's got a little bit more real estate, especially, Sean, playing with Ehlers, who backs up the competition the way that he does with his explosive speed. Not that Connor and Scheifele don't, because they obviously do. But again, it's when you're a coach like Sutter Neal, that line's been the Jets' best line. And it wasn't that long ago we were talking about them about being one of the best lines in hockey. So you can understand why a coach is hesitant to break those guys up, even if it is just to get a taste test of it, just in case you need that other unit come playoff time. So I'm with you. I mean, it's super interesting, and maybe it's something that we see a little bit later on in the season. I think that Scott O'Neill's going to go with the standard lineup, and he's going to give those guys a chance to bounce back after an off night. That would seem to be the playbook for me that I would expect from him on Thursday.
Okay, Ken, I want to play not just with you, but with the chat room here, a game of Would You Rather. And I'm not talking about Hollywood stars or starlets. I'm talking about who would you rather the Winnipeg Jets play in the first round of the playoffs if they're going to lock up that first seed and play the 8th seed. Clearly 4 candidates jockeying for that position right now: the Calgary Flames, Vancouver Canucks, St. Louis Blues, and the Utah Hockey Club. You're going to take this, Ken. I want to hear from you all in the chat room as well. I know it's a little bit tougher for you to kind of explain yourselves. If you just want to throw the name in there of the team that you want to play, feel free to do that. If you want to kind of give a little bit of an explanation why, feel free to do that. But Ken, who would you rather the Winnipeg Jets play in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Yeah, I don't know that there's an easy out with the four teams, quite frankly. I would say it would be easy for us to say recency bias and say, wow, the Canucks play like this for the last, 13 games or 12 or whatever they have left. I mean, they're going to make it. But I mean, they just had a listless loss against the Utah Hockey Club. So it's hard to say where they're at. Kevin Lankinen was great. He's the kind of guy that can steal games. We know that. Thatcher Demko, when healthy, can steal games. Quinn Hughes is not only a Norris candidate, but a Hart Trophy candidate if Vancouver gets in, based on how they play when he is on the ice versus how they play when they're not on the ice. The Calgary Flames are a team that works incredibly hard. But I just don't know that they have the depth to be a serious contender this year. Famous last words, and put that on a receipt, and all of a sudden Calgary has a first round upset, and people will be saying, oh, well, again, you said that they didn't have the team that was deep enough to do it. Well, they got a good goaltender, Dustin Wolf, having a great year, Calder candidate. So Then you go to St. Louis. So St. Louis, Sean, I would say is this. I think that the Blues are the most dangerous candidate because they still have pieces that won the Stanley Cup recently. I know it's 2019. That's going to be 6 years ago. I get it. But Jordan Binnington, we saw what he did at the Four Nations face-off. I mean, we saw what he did, at various times. The year that we covered the Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup, 2022, their toughest series was in round 2 against the St. Louis Blues until Jordan Binnington got hurt, right? When Kadri fell into him. Yeah. So, I mean, Jordan Binnington has that ability to win series. They have, some very impressive pieces. Sean, we've talked about this. If we were stacking the teams, I think it's probably most likely that St. Louis gets in. They've got an easier strength of schedule down the stretch. I would say that the St. Louis Blues were the most likely candidate if they had not lost Colton Parayko on the back end. So I don't know. And then Utah is super interesting. I mean, Vejmelka's had a great year, but they're not the kind of team that would scare a team. And they're scary in some ways because they're have some skilled offensive players, and they're starting to finally listen to Andre Tourigny's systems suggestions. Like prior to this year, they have been suggestions and they're non-negotiables for Tourigny, but they haven't been non-negotiables for the players who've been wearing those jerseys, both in Arizona and now in Utah. So, they present their own challenges. I don't think there's an easy out in the first round. If I had to say, I would say Utah just because they have no experience, Sean. Now that could be an advantage for them in some ways. But I would say that, if the Jets were choosing, and again, Scott O'Neill said this, you don't pick your poison. He said this after the last game in Seattle. I would say it's probably Utah. And I would say the most dangerous team is St. Louis because of Binnington and some of the guys in their core group. But who do I think is going to make it? I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to turn the tables over to you. I'm thinking it's one of the two Canadian teams, but right now I would say it's going to be St. Louis. But the question was asked, who is the best matchup for the Jets? I would say Utah. But Sean,
that's not I didn't say that. I said, who would you rather? Not who's the best for the Jets. Who would you?
Well, no, that's what we said.
The roundup you want to see. What's the
roundup? What do I want to see? Oh, yeah. Man. I mean, as a fan of Canadian hockey, I would like to see two Canadian teams go at it, but I would also like to see what the series, Jets, I think, again, it's a new year and everything else. And a lot of guys don't want to talk about 2019. I would think that I want to see a matchup between the Jets and the Blues, because if the Jets are going to finally, learn a ton of lessons and exercise a bunch of demons, don't you think they probably have to go through St. Louis, Colorado, Vegas? Let's just put it this way, Sean. If the Jets want to make the Stanley Cup final, don't they have to beat the three of the teams that have knocked them out in order to get there?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Don't you?
Yeah. No, I agree. This is a great comment by Jeff Kabilis, who says Kenny did the confusion corner sign in answering Renny's question. Okay, I'm just going to go through this quick. Calgary can't score. They can grind, but sure, they can't outgrind the Jets. They've got a really great young goaltender who could give the Jets fits, but I don't think a goaltender wins you that series. So I think if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you'd be angling for a series against a team like Calgary. I still don't think Vancouver has things figured out. It's we've talked about this before. Belief is thin. The Winnipeg Jets are the kind of team that challenges belief. So in a 7-game series, if they got in against Vancouver, I think that they would challenge Vancouver's belief, and sure enough, it would. I think that series goes 5 games. I think maybe Vancouver sneaks one out in another game. They kind of make a little bit of a push, but the Jets break it in the right way in that game, and then next thing you know, it's all over. I'm fascinated by the Utah Hockey Club because you know how I feel about Andre Tourigny. I think he's actually been one of the best coaches in the league in game planning for the Winnipeg Jets. Sure. So I think he would make that series interesting. I still think that series probably only goes 5 games, if not 6, maybe 6, just because of the depth that happens in that. But I'll tell you this, from polling the chat room, I think the chat room's right online with this for me. I've got different motivations. The people in the chat room here are saying, I just want the easiest out for the Winnipeg Jets. That's not me. I love hockey and I love good hockey. So I'm thinking, what do I want to see? I want to see the most, magnificent hockey that I can see played. The St. Louis Blues right now are 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. They've been absolutely on fire ever since they came back from the Four Nations, and they've done a good chunk of that without Colton Parayko, who now isn't he supposed to be getting back right around the beginning of the playoffs?
Well, he's going to be reassessed, I think, right before.
Yeah,
so I don't know if they were confident, but I mean, they're a different team when he's playing, but they're still playing well without him. So
they're playing unbelievable without him. And so the one thing that I had said, if you go back and you want to go back and look, and maybe if they end up playing them in the first round, you want to go back and you want to take a look at the K&R shows from the 2 games they played against the St. Louis Blues. That would give you a good breakdown of what happened. Sorry, not 2. They'd played 1 earlier in the season, and the Jets won that one. But the one that the St. Louis Blues beat them, we've talked about this. Jim Montgomery is a great playoff coach because he gets in there and he can game plan, he can turn things. Even think about this, that year that they finished first in the league and had that record-setting season, they lost to the Florida Panthers.
Yep.
If you go back and watch that series, every possible thing had to go right for the Florida Panthers to walk away and win that series, and it did. Like, they got the goals when they needed to. They got the bounces when they needed to. One bounce doesn't go their way, and the Boston Bruins are probably going to the Cup final that year and maybe even hoisting a cup if they get there. But
past a breakaway, right? Past a breakaway in Game 7. I mean, it was there for the taking.
Well, Marchand, wasn't that the Marchand breakaway that you're talking about? I think it's Marchand who gets in all.
Asta had one in Game 5 too, when they had a closeout chance. I think when it was 3-1 too. So
yeah, exactly. Like, you're talking about a bounce goes that way and they get through in 5 and they're arrested and they don't have to go to war. And now all of a sudden maybe they go to the Cup and win the Cup, right? So Jim Montgomery, great coach. I think what you've seen in the last 2 games they've played the Winnipeg Jets, they've challenged the Winnipeg Jets, and it has not been a mirage. Like Andre Tourigny does a good job of game planning for the Jets, so does Jim Montgomery. This is a young team that we've talked about for years. They just never wanted to grind, and now all of a sudden he's convinced them to grind. And all of a sudden, you've got Robert Thomas, who's got this talent, and Jordan Kyrou, and this Dylan Holloway. You talked about him, Ken, is a player that has come out of nowhere and has that, that pedigree of going to the Stanley Cup final last year. And that defense is this established defense. And the one thing that we've seen before, Ken, is older defensemen who have been there before. We saw it with Vancouver last year. They're hard to get past in the playoffs. You know what? During a regular 82-game season, a lot of times we look at these older defensemen and we kind of laugh them off, like people would have laughed off Luke Schenn at one point. Don't you feel confident having Luke Schenn now, an older, established defenseman? He's not going to make the most eye-popping numbers throughout the year, but come playoff time, he's going to stand up in there. I think that the St. Louis Blues right now, what they're doing is not a mirage. I want to see them get in there because I think it's good for hockey to have the best teams in there, not someone to limp over the line and then be a sacrificial lamb. I still think the Winnipeg Jets win the series against any of these teams, but I think it's a very fun, fascinating series if you get a Central Division rival, the guys who broke your heart in 2019, Jordan Binnington versus Connor Hellebuck rematch. And just like now, all of a sudden, the Winnipeg Jets being the established team against the young guys on the rise with a coach who knows how to play, get his team going in the playoffs. For covering a series, I want to cover a series that after, when we're doing our breakdown, we're like, wow, what a game.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Not, okay, that went how we expected. Sacrificial lambs got sacrificial lambed, and there you go. Anyways.
This Patrick is also thinking of the reporters here. One Anthem series is also welcome, given the fact that Jets are probably stuck in the 9:00 slot.
Yeah,
but I mean, we've also covered lots of series in St. Louis, Sean, and great town, great people,
great barbecue. Great, best sandwich.
Let's just put it this way:
I've
any
sat
of
on the road.
any of those four options would be a fun series to cover, regardless.
You just popped my balloon here and exposed me to everybody. I just want to go there for the food to St.
I
Louis.
still haven't gone to the deli that Sean wants me to go to. So
well,
that's
yeah,
why he's choosing St. Louis.
let's just do
Blues
this
Deli.
right now. You are coming to the Blues City Deli
I will.
with me. I took Harn
Deal.
Ryan and Sammy Cosentino last time we went there, and they were blown away by it. Just you and Sammy are good friends. Ask him about it; he'll tell you.
I trust.
You've been missing out.
I trust you too, buddy. I trust.
Oh, I know you do. I know you do. But sometimes you need that little bit of incentive. Sammy's a guy of taste, of class. He wears a scarf. I can't pull off a scarf. Gee. Anyways, okay. Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game. What you got, Ken?
Yeah, there were not a lot of great candidates, and the only one that I actually texted you that worked is a stick lift by Adam Lowry on Elias Pettersson, number 1, the center, EP40. Looked like he was going to have a tap in the slot, but Lowry, really good stick lift. So going with that. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't much to be offered. That was in the first period, but that's my choice.
I just texted our boy Eric Engels happy birthday. So for me,
we've
got you covered. Play of the game is Ken getting a hold of Eric and wishing him happy birthday for me. Thank you for doing that, Ken. You are the man. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Ken, Keg Save of the Game. What do you got?
Yeah, I know people are temptation island for Hellebuck after the exchange went awry with Colin Miller, and he dove back in and made a ridiculous save, and it was a great save. But for the purposes of this show, Kevin Lankinen's save off of Mark Scheifele is the Keg save of the game because it completely changed the complexion of the game. The Jets were finally moving in the game and had a chance. I think it would have tied it at the time, but it didn't. So. The stop by Lankinen on Scheifele is my choice, even though obviously the Hellebuck save is ridiculous. It's a highlight reel special, but he created his own mess, and even though he prevented the goal, I'm going with the Lankinen save as my choice for Keg save of the game.
I have a hard time giving an award to a guy who created the open net that he's stealing the puck off the line from. But for look's sake, I'm going to give it to that one. But it doesn't matter what I think. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the Keg Save of the Game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine Keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show of the Keg Save of the Game, that would be Tracy EB. Tracy, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email, and I will have the fine folks at the Keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine Keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And that brings us to the TCB Lamplighter of the game. Ken, what are you thinking?
Yeah, you know what? Ehler's goal is pretty follow, it's workman-like, work boots. Shen takes the shot, and quickly, Luke Shen, 8 hits today. 8 hits, 2 block shots. Another strong effort from him. But again, I'm going full Sean Reynolds heel mode here. Brock Nelson has been struggling mightily, Sean. Barely scored at all. Pumps 2 home. The power play goal by Besser is my choice because it's a well-designed play. Quinn Hughes barely gets his slap shot over the stick of Vlad Nemestikov. Besser is there for the high slot redirection and kind of got the Canucks rolling in a game where the Jets were 0-for-2 and had a brief 5-on-3. Canucks win the special teams battle, and Besser scores his first of 2 to get to 20. I'm going with that as my choice.
I know Jeff Kabilis is going to love this one here, but Ken turning heel is about as surprising as John Cena turning heel for the first time in his career, something no one thought was ever going to happen. I will, hey, since he's gone heel, I got to go babyface, right? So I'm going to give it to Alex Iafallo just because I think that's the kind of goals, that's the kind of effort that the Jets needed to show throughout the game to get back into that game. And while one line was doing it, and the second line was flashing their skill a little bit more, just not enough people were pulling on the rope to get there. They needed more of that. That's my hashtag TCB Lamplighter of the game. But doesn't matter what Ken and I think. Share with us your TCB Lamplighter. You're automatically entered to win a frosty delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your 8-pack, you can head on down and buy one of your own at TransCanada Brewing Company, 1290 Kenniston, where you can join them in their store. Lots of different beers, lots of great beers on tap, and of course the great food. I've been singing their praises for years. Hey, I'm not just a guy who talks about them online. I'm a customer too, as they will attest, and a lot of people will have seen me down there because the food, it is lights out. Kenny, that's it for me. What do you got? Anything before we go?
No, let's see. The Jets have.
I did. Oh, sorry, I didn't announce the lamplighter winner. Sorry to cut you off. Kodiak's fan. You are the winner of the lamplighter from our last show. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email, and I will I will send you a voucher for a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. You will find out soon, Kodiak fan. It is the nectar of the gods. Sorry to cut you off, Ken.
Nope, nothing to be sorry about. All good. You got to make sure you get those awards out there. So,
yes.
Otherwise, T. Will be saying, Renny, quit skipping the award winners. So, be interesting. I mean, I'm with you. This is a hiccup for the Winnipeg Jets. It's not a put them into a tailspin mode, not a sign of things to come, whatever else. I mean, the Jets have shown over 69 games that, poor efforts are few and far between. And again, the effort was poor in the defensive zone, poor coverage, poor puck management. Still generated plenty to be in that game. So I would expect a fun game against the Oilers. The Oilers have been a little bit up and down, but they put an absolute beating on the Utah Hockey Club today, Sean. I think 7-1 was the last score that I saw. So you can be sure that they're going to try to be cranking things up and getting sharp down the playoff down the playoff push here during the stretch run as well. So I'm expecting a really fun game between two really good teams.
Yeah, no doubt. I just wanted to say this. If wherever we do end up on the road, both of us have a really good book. I've got a good reputation for taking people to good places on the road, as do you, Ken. I think we've got it covered. We've both got our own kind of places, which means we kind of just double things as we go down there. But when it gets into the playoffs, or if you're on the road and Ken and I are going to be into a place, feel free to reach out and we can direct you wherever you want to go. We've actually wanted to, we banty around the idea of doing like a on the road food podcast because both of us, we like our food and we've got a lot of great places to send people to. So like I said, if it is St. Louis, and if you happen to be down there to watch the series, feel free to reach out. You know how to get a hold of us, and we can give you any kind of recommendations. And maybe if we're heading down there at the same time, we can share some ribs and some brisket sandwiches, stuff like that together.
Sorry, last one before we go. And we sometimes get emotional on the show. Would have been my mom's birthday today, so I've been thinking about her. So, anyways,
well, good on you, Ken. That's the connection. Got to stick with that. Okay, everyone. On that sentimental note, let's shut this thing down. But I will say this before we do go. If you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we would implore you to appreciate our sponsors who keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Flame and Comfort, the Kenny and Renny OGs in the Johnson Group, and of course, the Keg and TransCanada Brewing Company. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Looking forward to doing this with you again after the next game, folks. Until then, bye-bye.